We play and call it work.
Hey everybody, right after you watch this video by Kitetsu, which is all about Age of Sigmar lore and its history, we've got an awesome battle report for you in the MiniWarGaming Vault. It's 3,000 points of Ideneth Deepkin versus Caradron Overlords. It's an awesome game, so make sure you go check it out in the link below after the video.
Hello everyone and welcome to MiniWarGaming. My name is Kitetsu and I have the honour of being able to work with MiniWarGaming on making this series of videos. Matt contacted me and asked me if I would be interested in doing a lore series. And I've been a massive fan of MiniWarGaming for years, so I leapt on that chance and it just feels great to be here making these videos. One tiny thing before we begin, I actually have my own channel which is dedicated to Age of Sigmar, and some of you may even know about it already, so if you like this video be sure to check that out, the link will be in the description. And obviously if you are new to MiniWarGaming too, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you can follow this series. Each episode is going to come out every 2 weeks and I would love to make them more frequent, but I have my own channel to work on at the same time. I'm going to aim this series at newcomers, but just the fact you are here watching this video means that you almost certainly know what Warhammer is. I'm going to assume that much at least. But if this is your first time with the hobby, then I can tell you that you've just stumbled across one of the most exciting and rewarding hobbies that you could ever get involved in. You get to collect amazing models, build them, paint them, there's the storylines and novels to read, there's the game to play, army lists to write, potentially you could go and enter tournaments, or maybe just play with a small group of friends or at a local store. Every aspect of the hobby is like a micro hobby in its own right, and it's totally up to you how involved you get with each of those parts. Similarly, you don't have to be put off by feeling the hobby is too complex. Sure, there's a lot to it, but you can basically go as far with this hobby as you want to. If all you want to think is, hey, these space lizards look amazing and I want to paint them, then that's totally cool. There's no right or wrong with the hobby. But enough of that, what is this series going to be about? I want to have fun with it, and although I said it's aimed at newcomers, I don't doubt there'll be something for all fans of Age of Sigmar in here too. What I'm going to do with this series is basically just break Age of Sigmar down into numerous parts that mostly focus on introducing the lore to you. It won't be exhaustive in detail because you could make an entire series on every topic that I will cover, but it's just going to be a great way to get you all started on the narrative and the lore so that by the end of this you know what is what when it comes to AOS. In this video I just want to make a brief overview of the story so far, and obviously it's a continually evolving narrative so it's not going to be up to date forever, but I'm going to race through it at a kind of lightning pace, missing out tons of detail. But this video is the condensed overview of everything, almost like the contents page of a book, and then the following videos will go back and give you the proper details on each topic. So, part 1, an overview of the Age of Sigmar. It all begins with a world being destroyed. The world existed in a time before time, an age all but forgotten to those who aren't gods. That world, known as the Old World, contained a mix of different races: elves, dwarves, humans, orcs, goblins, the rat-like creatures called Skaven, and many more. It was a fascinating place with a deep and rich history. But all good things ultimately come to an end. The forces of darkness, led by the nefarious Lord of Chaos called Archaeon, decided that they would destroy that old world, enslave its souls once and for all, and that finally evil would triumph over good. So began globe-spanning conflicts that led to the world being destroyed. Even the god King Sigmar, a mighty and powerful god able to control lightning, couldn't save the ill-fated world from its annihilation. The story of the Old World's end is actually one of those rare cases where the bad guys win, and they did so in truly spectacular fashion. By the time the Dark Gods were done with the Old World, they had completely destroyed it. All that was left of it was a molten core hurtling through space. And clutching onto that core was Sigmar, the good guy and god of thunder that I just mentioned. The Chaos gods underestimated his power, and they didn't know that this god was still alive as he desperately clung to this molten rock flying through the void. At the same time that the old world was destroyed, the balance of the universe was thrown into chaos, and we ended up with this swirling expanse of magic and matter spreading out across the universe. It can be thought of a little bit like the Big Bang. All of this matter just spreads out and then starts to condense at specific points, which would then become the realms. There are 8 of these so-called mortal realms, and I will talk more about them in a few minutes, but basically, the dust and matter condensed into these spinning flat discs of land that are solid and yet permeated with magic. These realms would not exist without the magical energy that binds them together, and each of them is focused around a slightly different form of magic. One of them, for example, is Akshi, the realm of fire, and this one is covered in plains of ashen rock and lava, pockmarked by fiery volcanoes, and ends up being the site of both a titanic battle between a god and a colossal god beast, and is also where the Realm Gate Wars actually kicks off, but we'll get onto that later. While Sigmar is flying through space for a near uncountable age, the realms stabilise as they've been formed, and due to a weird quirk of the magical energies that created them, somehow many of the inhabitants of the old world found themselves in these new realms too. They had no idea how they mysteriously just awakened in the realms, but nevertheless, primitive enclaves of mortals began to spring up all over the place, particularly dwarves, which are now named Dwardin, humans, and orcs, which are now known as Aurochs. The realms also became inhabited by these colossal creatures called god beasts, and one of those detected the life force of Sigmar as he travelled clutching this rock through space. This was the great drake Dracothien, and he brought Sigmar and the core of the old world to one of the 8 realms called Azir, the heavenly realm. There in the heavens they set this core as a beautiful glowing reminder of what had come before. A lasting friendship grew between Dracothien and Sigmar as the Great Drake showed him the 8 realms and the secret realm gates that allowed instant travel between them. This is the beginning of a period of time called the Age of Myth. Sigmar explores all of the realms, he meets the primitive mortals, he saves them from the big scary monsters, and basically helps them all build the foundations of great civilizations. During his travels, he also meets various gods, some of which also came from the world that was, somehow materializing in the mortal realms at the point of their creation. Near the core of the old world in the heavens of Azir, Sigmar built a mighty city and his palace, a truly majestic and unbreachable place. With the gods he met, he formed a great pantheon, an alliance of gods and demigods that was strong enough to prevent any threats to the realms. As the civilizations began to flourish over the centuries, Sigmar's power grew and great armies and kingdoms arose. The realms basically enjoys a time of prosperity and peace, unlike any it has known since. But it didn't last. While Sigmar and his pantheon were busy building and creating civilizations and cities, a darker story was occurring in the realms of chaos. These places can be thought of as like another dimension, the chaos dimension. They are the place that the 4 main chaos gods reside: Nurgle, Khorne, Slaanesh, and Tzeentch. Other videos will go into more details about these different monstrous beings, but basically one of the chaos gods, Slaanesh, went missing, and the other chaos gods spent centuries fighting amongst themselves over his territory, basically. Then they finally noticed what Sigmar had been creating in the realms, and naturally they wanted that for themselves. They wanted to destroy and corrupt everything he had built and expand the realms of chaos into the mortal realms. But guess who else was there? None other than Archaeon himself, the Chaos General that had orchestrated the destruction of the old world. To cut a long story short, he was now a demigod of chaos, riding a monstrous 3-headed dragon and blessed with the gifts of 3 of the chaos gods. Archaeon united the rivaling chaos gods and invaded the realms with little warning. This starts the period of time known as the Age of Chaos, and the initial invasions were so horrific that they are often referred to as the Red Century. Another long story cut short, Sigmar's pantheon had begun to split apart at the seams, and the Alliance barely held together at the point that Archaeon invaded. These battles were terrible and shocking in their ferocity, but at first the pantheon successfully pushed them back, such was their power. But as the Alliance fell apart, so did Sigmar's hold over the 8 realms. Archaeon defeated Sigmar's forces in a monstrous battle, and Sigmar had no choice but to retreat back to Azir and seal all of the pathways into and out of the Heavenly Realm. Loads of refugees head to Azir and manage to settle there before the gate seal, but not all of them were so lucky. What we then get is 500 years of brutality across the remaining 7 realms. Sigmar and his armies are just locked away. They're not able to help any of those who are in need, but there are hundreds, maybe thousands of kingdoms, cities, villages and other such settlements scattered across the realms, and all of these are now at the mercy of Archaeon and his huge invasion force of mortal chaos warriors and demonic legions. Some of these kingdoms hold out pretty well for a time. There's bitter fighting between both sides, and actually there are some pretty great victories for the forces of good, but ultimately the numbers at Archaeon's command are near endless, and slowly but surely all of the kingdoms are ground into dust. Pretty much everywhere gets decimated, annihilated beyond recognition. There are scattered remnants of humanity and other races spread across the realms, but mostly as tribes, and for the most part nothing can really stand up against Archaeon. But all of the while this terrible age of chaos is going on, Sigmar isn't just sitting on his throne in Azir relaxing. He's formulating a plan to counterattack, and what he does is creates an immortal army. Whenever he witnesses a warrior defying chaos to their last breath, he takes their soul back to Azir, or whenever people die who were noble, kind and just, he also brings their soul back to Azir. And with those souls, he forges them anew as Stormcast Eternals, his immortal, lightning-imbued warriors that are ready to purge the lands from the taint of chaos. He waits until the time is right, when his army is large enough to seriously pose a threat to Archaeon, and then he unleashes them on the realms. The gates of Azir are reopened, and so begins the period of time known as the Age of Sigmar. Naturally, Archaeon moves to counter the Stormcast Eternals, but he can't be in every place at once, and lots of the Chaos Hordes have grown weak from lack of a true challenge over the last few hundred years. In fact, these warriors have become so bored of hunting down the small tribes of scattered humans that they have started fighting amongst each other instead, and they are woefully unprepared for Sigmar's attack. Archaeon's great counterplan is to enlist the help of some of the god beasts. We met Dracothian earlier in the story, but there are others too, and with their help, Archaeon hopes he will have a weapon that can truly hold Sigmar at bay and defeat them once and for all. The next phase of the story is a battle for the so-called All Points, and these are the most strategically important locations in the entire realms. Basically, they are a series of magical gates that all lead to the same place and connect all of the realms together, just to that one single point. Cutting many more long stories short, Sigmar and Archaeon battle over these all points, and Sigmar ultimately manages to win some of them back from the clutches of chaos. The so-called Realm Gate Wars come to an end. Archaeon slinks off, likely to lick his wounds and prepare for a counterattack of his own, and the realms enter a period of relative stability, where they can start to be rebuilt. New settlements and cities arise, and Sigmar strengthens his hold over the realms, but they're not even remotely safe. They're just safer than they were. You still get occasional demonic attacks spreading across the realms, or maybe wild tribes of Aurochs attacking too, so things are definitely not safe, but basically for the first time there is hope in the realms. Unfortunately for Sigmar, there is another who is capitalizing on this period of relative stability. None other than the god of death himself, Nagesh. Nagesh has been planning something truly terrible, and all of the realms will fall under his control if they don't head to the realm of death to stop him in his tracks. The friendship that was once held between Sigmar and Nagesh is well and truly forgotten, for Nagesh sees Sigmar's creation of the Stormcast as a blatant theft of the souls that he sees as belonging to himself. As Nagesh's plan starts coming into fruition, strange things start occurring across the realms, and a new chapter of Age of Sigmar begins with the malign portents. And basically that is where the story picks up with the second edition of Age of Sigmar. So that is an overview of the story in a nutshell. It misses out pretty much everything but the main events, and it focuses purely on Sigmar, the Stormcast and Archaeon. Plenty of other races have their own key parts to play in that story, but we will explore those a little bit more another time. But right then, this video has probably ended up being quite long, so let's finish things up there, and then in the next video I think we will focus on the Age of Myth and some of the exploits that happen there. Then it would probably be logical to move on to the Age of Chaos and then the Realmgate Wars, and so on and so forth. Because the Stormcast Eternals have such a big backstory at the moment, it would probably be good if I did a part on those too, so keep an eye out for that. But either way, this video should have given you a good starting point into understanding what the storyline is about. I'm going to leave the video here, but I will see you guys and girls in a couple of weeks with the next video. Don't forget to like the video and drop a sub to support MiniWarGaming, and you can of course head over to my channel for more coverage of Age of Sigmar. Otherwise, it's goodbye for now.
As a quick outro to Kitetsu's video, we have an awesome 3,000 point battle report for you. Idoneth Deepkin versus Karajan Overlords at the link below. It is in the MiniWarGaming Vault. If you're not familiar with what the Vault is, the MiniWarGaming Vault is a paid subscription service that we offer that gives you thousands of more battle reports, painting tutorials, all sorts of extra free videos to help support us in making all of this. And so if you want to get that 3,000 point game, you can click the link. If you're not a Vault member, you can click it and get a free trial, get instant access, and go and watch the video. Big thank you to Kitetsu for making this video. Stay tuned for even more from him as we go through the entire Age of Sigmar history leading up to the malign portents and to Age of Sigmar's 2nd edition story. Happy wargaming.